Good morning, everyone. Chris Profi, Musically Obsessed. Happy Monday. Currently, I am listening to Black Flag in my head, which happens to be, I'm going to say, my favorite Black Flag album. So it's almost done with side one, so we'll just kind of let that play through. All right, but I'm not talking about Black Flag this morning. What I want to talk about are the Dead Kennedys. Now, I got into the Dead Kennedys, and I've been listening to the Dead Kennedys probably since I was around 14 years old. I remember growing up, I lived in a neighborhood with a lot of kids in it, which was great. And a lot of my friends happened to be skaters. And I was not a skater. I was a wannabe skater. I couldn't even balance on the thing. But I remember hanging out with them, and they would be building their skateboard ramps, and they'd be listening to this music. And I was coming more from the metal. So I was listening to Megadeth, Metallica, Slayer, Creator, all that kind of stuff. And then I started hearing this other music. I'm like, what is this? And it was, bands like Black Flag and the Circle Jerks and the Sex Pistols and MOD, DRI, and the Dead Kennedys. And the Dead Kennedys always sounded unique to me. And I think the reason is, there's a couple different reasons. First of all, Jello Biafra on vocals. There's nobody else who sounds like Jello Biafra. He just has that distinct voice. And the sound of the Dead Kennedys is so cool. It goes beyond punk. I feel like they kind of bring in sort of surf rock into some of their songs. I think East Bay Ray on guitar, he has some sort of surf licks when he's playing. So I definitely get that surf vibe, which makes sense because the Dead Kennedys came up around 1978 out of San Francisco, California, I believe. So that makes sense to have that California vibe to their music. So what I want to do today, I want to walk you through their releases, talk about some of my favorite songs. Everything right now I have is on CD. Now, my goal this year, I'd like to get some of the Dead Kennedy stuff on vinyl, because the vinyl stuff had so many interesting booklets and other little goodies inside of it that the CD has tried to reproduce, but it's nothing like what you get with the vinyl. So let me walk you through. I'll tell you some of my favorite songs, and I'll tell you some of my favorite Dead Kennedys albums. So the first album, this came out in 1980. It's called Fresh Fruit for Rotting Vegetables. And maybe I didn't mention that the Dead Kennedys record label was Alternative Tentacles. This release, I do not have the Alternative Tentacle release of this. This came out on Cherry Records. This is a classic album. I think if you were going to start off with the Dead Kennedys, if you had never heard them before, this is probably a really good place to start. Some of my favorite songs, I love Kill the Poor, I love Forward to Death, I love Let's Lynch the Landlord, Drug Me is great, Chemical Warfare, California Uberalis, and then Holiday in Cambodia. I mean, come on. And then they do a version of Viva Las Vegas, which is, typical Dead Kennedys. So yeah, if you're just getting into the Dead Kennedys, this is probably a good place to start. You're going to hear two of their most famous songs, California Uberalis and Holiday in Cambodia. Great stuff. Next, in 81, they came out with an EP called In God We Trust Incorporated. This was a very short EP, very quick, fast songs, probably some of the fastest stuff they ever did. Religious Vomit, Moral Majority, Hyperactive Child, which I really like, Keepone Factory, Dog Bite, which I really like. And I'm going to swear here, so if you got kids around, just keep them out of the room. The next song, Nazi Punks Fuck Off, which is great. We've Got a Bigger Problem Now, and their version of Rawhide. So, In God We Trust is not an album that I listen to too often, but I do appreciate it and I do like it. Like I said, standouts for me, I love Dog Bite, I love Hyperactive Child, and I like the Nazi Punks F Off. So, very cool album. I keep turning this CD. Next, in '82, came my favorite Dead Kennedys album, Plastic Surgery Disasters. And that cover always freaked me out as a kid. And this was one of those albums where it came with a booklet in the original LP. And the booklet contained a bunch of different news clippings and photo collages. And it was so cool. And like I said, the CD tries to replicate it, but it's nothing like what you got with the LP. But as a kid, I remember listening to the music and just really looking at these collages and thinking it was so cool. I'll show you a couple more. So why is Plastic Surgery Disasters my favorite album? Well, I feel that on this album, they started to expand their sound a little bit. And this would continue into the next album as well. I just love the different soundscapes of this album. And let me talk about the songs. Government Flu, awesome. Terminal Preppy, love it. Trust Your Mechanic, Well-Paid Scientist, Buzz Bomb, Forest Fire, which is one of my favorite Dead Kennedy songs. Halloween, great message. Basically, the idea of the song Halloween is, why do people wait till one day of year to try out a different personality or a different persona, or to maybe get in touch with that true personality inside of themselves? Do it for one night and then the next day go back to their boring selves. Basically, the Dead Kennedys are saying, hey, you know what? Be yourself all year round. Don't wait till Halloween to dress up like something and try something out. You know, be unique and be an individual throughout the year. I thought that's a pretty cool idea for a song. Winnebago Warrior, I love. Riot, Bleed For Me, I Am the Owl, Dead End, and one of my favorite Dead Kennedy songs, Moon Over Marin. I love that song. Love it. I play the song Forest Fire for my kids in the car, and it opens up. I'm just looking at the lyrics here. It's a very funny intro. No junk food, just earthly goods. I ate weird berries in the woods. Now I'm seeing colors, I'm getting higher. I think I'll start a forest fire. Plastic Surgery Disasters. Next, I told you that they started to expand their sound a little bit. Well, Frankenchrist was further expanding their sounds. Longer songs, just not your typical punk music, which was great. This is probably my second favorite Dead Kennedys album. And this happens to be the alternative Tentacle version. Some favorites on here. I love Soup Is Good Food. I love Hell Nation. I love This Could Be Anywhere. I love MTV Get Off the Air. At My Job is kind of cool. It doesn't sound like anything like the Dead Kennedys did. And Stars and Stripes of Corruption. Like I said, a lot of these songs are longer on here. Stars and Stripes of Corruption is over 6 minutes long. Very, 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 very good punk album. Check it out, Frankenchrist. That came out in '85. Then, their last proper album, I believe that this was, just looking at a date here, '86. Bedtime for Democracy. And there's that Dead Kennedys emblem that people still wear today, and probably a lot of kids wear it and have no idea what it means on their t-shirt. This is another great album. 21 songs. Upbeat, fast, totally different than what they were doing on Frankenchrist, the album before. I love their version of Take This Job and Shove It. Dear Abby is great. The Great Wall. Cesspools in Eden, One Way Ticket to Pluto, Anarchy for Sale. Just a great album. We came home and found our son lying dead on his bed of a gunshot wound. He had his headphones on and there was an Ozzy record on the turntable. So we called our lawyer. That's an intro to one of the songs on this album. I always love this cover though too. And their last album was a compilation album of some unreleased songs and some other little goodies. It was called Give Me Convenience or Give Me Death, and I believe that this came out in '87. Now, some highlights of this album. I love the song Pull My Strings, which is a live song where the Dead Kennedys are making fun of new wave music, and they actually play the lick from the song My Sharona. It's hilarious. And the other song I like is Night of the Living Rednecks. It's another live song where East Bay Ray breaks a guitar string, and Jello Biafra goes off on this long tangent, this long spoken word story, which is hilarious. Those are two highlights of this album. And some other great songs too. So that's the Dead Kennedys. If you're watching this, I'm sure you know who the Dead Kennedys are and you listen to them. If you don't know who the Dead Kennedys are, you've got to definitely check them out. So listen, everybody enjoy the rest of your Monday and listen to music.